wanted to know with the textbook. We're skipping that lesson from the textbook. All right, so 12.8, similar solids today. All right, going back to the idea of similarity, way back in chapter 7 is when we started talking about similar shapes. Okay, remember similar polygons are polygons that are proportional, so we can see one's kind of smaller, one's bigger. We were able to set it up so that we looked at the sides to see if the sides were proportional and solve that. Yeah, go for it. Okay, so today we're going to do the same idea, but now with solids. So one that's bigger and one that's smaller. Yes, he had football equipment pickup, and then he's in the track.
Okay, so he's here but not here.
Yeah, I'm very confused about it. Okay, so a couple of things back from chapter 7. We talked about measurements. So if I look at measurements of similar solids, okay, we know that if I compare one side of a solid to the side of another solid, we can write that ratio equal to another side over another side, or some sort of measurement. So sometimes we're talking about like the height or a radius, not necessarily the side. Okay, again, I'm going to color code this. So I'm going to use green and red today. If you'd like to use green and red, you can. So if I'm looking and I'm comparing the side of one shape compared to the side of another, and if you don't want to use colors, maybe you do like side A over side B equals side A over side B. Maybe you put in some letters or 1, 2, show that these bottoms match and the tops match. That's what we did in chapter 7. We talked about that measurement, and then we'd put like an X somewhere, and then we'd solve it and figure out what's one of the missing sides. Last chapter, we talked about how to do that with similar polygons with areas. So I could do surface areas now. Okay, and with surface areas, does anyone remember when we did area, we did side over side? But we couldn't just say that that proportion was the same as the surface areas. What did we have to do with those sides? If you need to look back at 11.6, 11.5. Okay, when we did areas, we did side over side, but we had to do the parentheses squared. Okay, so side over side, parentheses squared, is going to be equal to our surface area over surface area. Again, those tops, the numerators, have to come from the same shape. So I'm going to color code them green, saying they're both coming from like a green shape. And the bottoms come from the same shape, the denominators. So that's what we kind of talked about a little bit last unit. Last unit was more about area rather than surface area, but same idea. And then we're going to add in volumes. And yesterday we talked a little bit about this. When you looked at a volume of two shapes, yep. I need an eraser.
All the pencils are almost out of eraser.
Yeah. All right, when we looked at volumes, we kind of saw how did that change how much could fit in one of the other. And with volume, again, we can compare a side and a side, or a measurement and a measurement. But instead of just comparing side to side or side over side, parentheses squared, what might we use for volume? Parentheses cubed. And that will equal our volume over our volume. So those are kind of our three main ideas today. Again, it's really important that these match. this top and bottom.
So this is kind of like our formula for today, so make sure you've got this. Take a moment, pause here, make sure you've got all of this written down. That's the important part you'll need to do.
Alright, you're going to get a glue in. I'm going to glue it in on the left side so that I still have room to work, otherwise we might not be able to fit it in on one page. So I'm going to just glue it on this left side. And then I'll write on the right side here and kind of below. So go ahead and get that glued in. So we're going to do 3 examples with this one example. It's kind of 3 problems based on what we are given. Again, on this one, I'm going to really use colors to show the difference between A and B. So if you haven't grabbed 2 colors yet, maybe grab 2 colors. Even if they're not green and red. Alright, so first off, what type of shapes are these? Are these prisms, cones, cylinders, pyramids, spheres? What do we have here? Cylinders, good. So these are cylinders. I'm going to say A is my green cylinder. And I'm going to put B as my red cylinder. But if you're not somebody who you don't like to use those colors, then make sure that you're looking at that A and that B. Okay. In cylinder A, we're given something in that picture. What do we know based on that picture on the diagram? What is this 5 representing? Good, the diameter. Yeah, it goes across. So our diameter is 5. And in B, what's our diameter? 9. All right, now they gave us some of this information. On your practice, this information is going to be like written in the directions. So you might have to read a little bit and match, but this was just a little bit easier for us to figure that out. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the height of A. So when I find the height of A, if I'm looking at height, I need to think which one of these 3 are we going to use? Are we going to use the measurement formula, surface area, or volume if I'm finding height? Am I going to do the measurement, surface area, or the volume? Yeah, just the measurement. So I'm going to do my side over side equals side over side. I don't need to do any parentheses or anything like that. So I'm going to start with my 5. And I'm going to compare 5 over, what's our other side of the other cylinder? 9 equals. Now 5 went with cylinder A. So I want to go back to cylinder A. What's the height of cylinder A? Question mark. We don't know. That's our goal. So instead of using a question mark, you can do a question mark, or you could use an X or a Y or a J or an H or anything really. And what's the height of cylinder B? 27. Okay. So 5 compared with X. 9 went with 27. Now, depending on your teacher who you had trimester 2 when you learned chapter 7, you might solve this a couple of different ways. One way to do this is cross multiplication and then solve for x. The way that we did it in our class is we just got this x by itself. What number is with that x? 27. So all we have to do is get rid of that dividing by 27. What's the inverse of divide by 27? Multiply by 27. So if I do it on one side and I write times 27, I have to do it to the other side, times 27. And I'm going to throw that into my Desmos calculator. So 5 over 9 times 27, and we get 15. But we want to make sure we're labeling it correctly. So if I'm looking at height, the height of A, the height of cylinder A is 15. Do I want to label it centimeters, square centimeters, or cubic centimeters for height, how tall something is? Yep, just centimeters. Somebody whispered it, I swear. Okay, and that's our height A, is 15 centimeters. All right, next up, we're going to find the surface area of B. So first I'm going to start by comparing my sides. So we can do 5 over 9. I need to decide, am I going to leave it as 5 over 9? Am I going to do parentheses squared or parentheses cubed for surface area? Good. Surface area is our parentheses squared. It's proportional, but it's proportional via the squared. Equals. Now I want to do surface area. On the top here I have my 5. So I want to think, what's the surface area that goes with that 5? That's my 125. And what was the surface area that went with 9? The part we don't know. Now there's an issue with this one. What's our issue? Yeah, the x is on the bottom. It doesn't make it quite as easy to solve. So could we switch it so that x is on the top? Yeah. So I'm going to just rewrite this real quick and make it x over 125. But if I flip this side, what has to be on the other side? Yep, 9 over 5. So now we're putting the red over the green. On your practice today, they're going to be just kind of filling in the blanks here. This is going to be one part, is to fill in what goes here, what goes here. If you notice that and they'll have to notice if they match or not. You might want to use a whiteboard to kind of work out and see, because you might do that flip. Some people, they can look at this and just say, oh, I want x on top. This is the x, so I'm going to put the 9 on top. If you can go straight to that, that's great. If not, that's okay too. Okay, so now I'm going to solve that. Again, a couple ways to do this. So if you're getting help from a parent, a brother, a sister, a friend, another teacher, whoever you're getting help from, they might solve it differently. It might look a little different, but we should get the same answer. You could do 9 squared and 5 squared and then cross multiply. Again, I like to just keep it a simple one-step equation. I need to get x by itself. So what do I have to undo? The 125, because that's what's with the x. Good. So how do I undo divide? Multiply. And that gets rid of the 125 here, so I'm left with just x. But in my calculator, I'm going to be really careful to make sure that I put this in correctly. So when I put it in, I want to use parentheses. 9 over 5, parenthesis, and then the squared goes on the outside, times 125. Okay, does that make sense how we typed it in? Really important that we have those parentheses. The fraction is in the parentheses. We have an exponent. So x equals 405. So again, the surface area of B is 405 centimeters, square centimeters, or cubic centimeters. How do we measure surface area? Square, yep. Areas with square centimeters. All right, we have one more problem. There's one part missing here. There's also a mistake here. Our next one is going to be volume. We're going to find the volume of A.
The volume label, yep. It says square, but it should say.
Yeah, that was supposed to be cubic centimeters. Miss Ryder said it's okay to make mistakes. It's very nice of you. Alright, so if I want my x to be in the numerator, this is kind of how we think about it the other way. So if I want to set up this other side for volume, I'm missing the volume of A, x. That's my green one. I want that to be on top. So when I set up this fraction here, do I want it to be 5 over 9 or 9 over 5? What's going to match that x? Yeah, the 5 from the green is going to match that x. So 5 over 9. If that helps you to think a little bit ahead so you know that if you have to switch it around or not, you can. And then we'll have x over, what's the volume of the red? 2,187. But we're not quite finished there yet. This one, it's volume. So when we compare volumes, I can't just make it proportional the way it is. What else do I have to add into that equation? Yeah, the cubed. So parentheses, cubed. And then we solve that. Again, a couple ways to solve this. Trying to just make it simple, easy for our brains. X is on this side. With that x, I have a 2,187. So to undo this dividing, we're going to multiply. Good. And we're going to be really careful about how we put this into our calculator. Whoa, that line kind of got away from me. Make sure I can read that next year when I'm on the last notes of the year. All right. So in our calculator, when I type this in, I'm going to do 9 over 5, parenthesis. Now to get the third in there, remember we have to use that AB button. So AB to the third. And when I do times, I want to make sure that's off to the side, which I think it is. Yeah. Shouldn't it be 5 over 9? Isn't that what I did? Look, that's what I did. Get it together, Miss Morrell. Okay, 2187. There we go. Okay, so when I type this in, I'm noticing some people are realizing those parentheses. Do I need to go back and put this parenthesis in? Why don't I need to go back and put that parenthesis in? The reason it's kind of invisible, we call it like a ghost parenthesis sometimes, is because that's where the calculator is assuming it goes. Is the calculator right in assuming that that's where it goes? Yeah. If the calculator had put that parenthesis somewhere else, then yep, I need to go back and fix it. But the calculator is assuming right where it goes, so I don't need to go back and fix it. If you want to, if it's going to bother you, do that. And we get for our answer 375. Okay, and again, we're measuring volume. So if I'm going to do the volume of A is 375, my goodness, 375 centimeters, square centimeters, or cubic centimeters? Cubic, good. If you know how to label your answers, that is worth 2 points on your test, which is next. Anyone remember when your test is? Wednesday. All right, so our plan for the next week or so here is that today we do have a practice.